Well, hi everyone, welcome along. How are you today? Welcome along to this video on intermediate slope soaring for beginners and experts. Now many of you have been writing in and asking that you'd like to see a video on how to slope soar. So today I'm here with the ASW28 glider and we'll be slope soaring at the beautiful Karitane near Dunedin in New Zealand. And so if you're an expert, you can just kind of watch this and ignore my commentary. But if you're a beginner, you can listen along and I'll make a few comments and I'll teach you how to do it as we go through. Okay. Done. Alright, so the first thing you'll need for slope soaring is a slope soarer. You'll need some kind of a glider. Today I've got the ASW28, which is a 2.5 metre glider, which is excellent for slope soaring. Anything over 1.5 metres is just perfect. But this is about as good as you can get, really. You can use a normal plane, but like a Cessna or a Warbird, but what you'd have to do is take the engine out and use a very small battery, so it's very light and it will glide better. But in lieu of that, it's better to get a glider. So that's the first thing. The second thing you'll need to do is come to a place like this, where there are lots of prickles, but where there is a lot of wind and there's a slope, most importantly. What I've got behind me here is a large cliff face, and the wind is coming in off the sea and coming up that cliff face, and that will be providing ample lift. You may not live near the sea, and if that's the case, it's better to find a spot that doesn't have any trees or buildings in front of it, because you'll get a lot of turbulence. Here over the sea, the air will be absolutely perfect. There'll be no turbulence at all, so the plane will just sit there. But if you try slope soaring and it's all over the place, generally it's because you've got something down in front of you causing a lot of turbulence. So if you can go to the sea, that's the best place to go for slope soaring. Alright, well, this is the scariest bit, just throwing your glider off the cliff. You would have noticed a couple of minutes ago I went back out of the wind and I checked that everything was set up okay, so I've tested all the ailerons and everything. Everything seems to be working okay, so I'm pretty confident it'll survive the flight. You don't need the power on because there's so much wind, so all I'm going to do is just take it and throw it off the cliff. Hopefully. Okay, so you can see I've just thrown the glider off the cliff there and it went up immediately, showing there's plenty of uplift. There's actually a very large and wide area of uplift here, so I can fly up and down pretty much all I like, and it will be pretty safe for the glider. So the key with slope soaring, basically all you're doing is keeping the plane flying up and down within the area of uplift across the bank. So I'll demonstrate this here. I'll fly over out into the sea, and eventually you'll lose uplift if you go too far out or if you go too far over your back. Also, if you go too far to the left or right, you'll get off the end of the bank and you'll lose uplift as well.
Rudder.
So the key really then is to fly up and down within a particular zone. You can see here I'm demonstrating the stall turn, which keeps the plane flying up and down within their area of uplift.
Up and rudder. High speed. Up and rudder.
So it pays to have a plane that has an engine. You won't really see me using the engine today because there is so much wind, but it does help you to get out of trouble. For instance, if you fly over the back of the hill and you lose uplift, you can turn the engine on and fly yourself back.
Sitting there.
Also, what you'll find is there's areas where there's more uplift than others. Usually that's if there's a very steep vertical bank or an area where the wind is a little bit higher. you'll find that the plane will suddenly bubble up and get just that much more uplift. I tend to return to those sort of areas to get a little bit more height, and then I use that height to get more speed and do manoeuvres like loops and things. So the key really is to keep turning towards the wind and keep the plane fairly flat and level throughout those corners, and you do that by using more rudder and less aileron. So into the wind not only keeps the plane in the same position, but it keeps it in the area of uplift so you don't lose your height during the corner. If you are getting too much height, which can happen if the wind is too strong, then you can do the very high banking corners and do high G manoeuvres to bleed off some of that speed. You can see here now from side on, you can see where the bank draws up from the sea, and so long as you keep the plane in that area, you can keep doing loops as many as you like, and you can keep flying pretty much indefinitely. The air coming off the sea, as I mentioned at the beginning, is perfectly uniform, and you don't get any turbulence of any kind, so it makes for great flying. The other thing you can do if you've got a plane with flaps is you can slow the plane down, keeping it in the area of maximum uplift to gain more height. So here I'm sitting just above a vertical cliff where there seems to be a big bubble of uplift. If I put the flaps on, I can bring it back and just keep it in that area, and the plane essentially just climbs vertically up in the air. And then I can bleed off that height by doing high-speed passes, loops, and high G manoeuvres. So when you do turn with the wind, you have to be very careful. It does pick up a lot of speed. The problem is that you lose airspeed and you gain ground speed. So you have to keep the nose down to keep the airspeed up. Okay, so what that means when you turn to go with the wind, it has a tendency to stall. And when you turn sharply with the wings up on one angle going with the wind, you can do terrible stalls and crash into the cliffs. So you have to be careful to keep the nose down and keep the airspeed up, and have your finger on the up elevator and pull up the last minute to make sure you don't crash into cliffs. I also use a full rudder when I come back around with the wind, when I turn with the wind. So with these gliders, it's best to use as much rudder as you can and less aileron. So if you're not used to doing that, get used to doing that, or the thing that you can do is electronically mash in a little bit of rudder with your ailerons. So somewhere between sort of 15 to 50%, I've got it set at 30%. So that means when I turn slightly to the left with the ailerons, it mixes in about 30% rudder as well. So the bigger the plane that you have, the more slow and elegant the movement of the plane is. This plane, it's actually covering a large amount of ground because it's such a big glider. It looks like it's flying very slowly, but it's in fact flying very, very fast. If you want to do more acrobatics, loops, rolls, corkscrews and the like, you're better off having a smaller plane, about 1 to 1.5 meters in width. You can see here the plane's dropping like a stone, and that's because I've gone too far over to the edge. I've got to throw the engine on very quickly to try and get it out of trouble. So I've gone into the zone there over the sea where there's no uplift, and on the edge of that zone there's terrible turbulence. So it starts dropping like a stone. I'm turning the engine on and off here, trying to maneuver it through that turbulence and back into the area of uplift. And you can see here I've passed that zone now, and have to keep the nose down to move it forward, and then it will bubble up, get some more height when it's in the uplift again. So that's really a demonstration of what happens if you go over the edge. It's a very unforgiving landscape. Should you crash, there'd be no way to recover the plane from there. So that's why it is a huge advantage if you've got an engine, you can fly out of those areas. Also, this is what happens if you go over the back of the hill. There's an area of turbulence and an area of downdraft the further back you go. and the plane actually got sucked down against towards those cliffs at the back, so I've had to put it on full throttle to bring it back over the front of the hill. So you can do that if you want to explore those areas, but you can't do it without a good powerful engine to bring you back over the top of the hill again into the wind. So if it's very windy or you haven't got a glider with a good engine, you must keep it sitting on the front of the hill, preferably landing on the front side of the hill as well. You can see how stable the flight is when it's over the sea, beautifully smooth and elegant. So when you're about ready to wrap up, or you want to change position of where you're standing, the thing to do is to take it up nice and high in the sky, get it out of the turbulence, and just level it off and sit it there, and then you can go and sit down somewhere, or you can change positions, or you can get ready for landing. So up nice and high, there's not much danger of it crashing, and all you need to do is just keep it pointing straight into the wind. So every 5 seconds I give it a little bit of a touch on the aileron, but other than that it sort of pretty much flies itself up there.
Where's the plane?
It's got tyres standing up, so I thought I'd lie down. That's the maximum height that it will get up to. So that should be the height above sea level that this bank is.
So then to land it here at Karitane, I fly the plane around the back. I pick up a bit of height first, then I fly it around the back of the hill, and then I bring it in. So there'll be an area of high wind, and then under that there'll be an area of turbulence, and then there'll be an area where there's not a lot of wind. So at the moment you can see I'm bringing it down where there's not a lot of wind. So I've kept the throttle on about 10-15%. And I do that because I want to keep a little bit of airspeed up just to stop it from stalling. The reason is because I'm transitioning from high speed wind into a very low speed wind just sitting above that bank. So I've got the flaps full on there, and I'm just trying to bring it down gently. And I found the best spot is just there where there's a little bit of wind just coming over the edge of the bank. It makes for a slightly softer landing. Well, thanks for joining me today. That was slope soaring at the beautiful Karitane. I had a good time there today. I didn't need to use the engine at all. I was up for about an hour and a quarter. It was pretty good. There's lots of uplift and you could get right up there, and I had birds flying along with me as well, so it was pretty fun. The landing was, it's a little bit difficult landing here because there's a bit of kind of swirly wind, but it's not too bad, and I got it down okay without any damage. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again soon. Bye! And for you too. Bye.